everyone. This is Aaron at Popaholic, and I am talking with the Cyrkle and specifically Don Daneman. Did I pronounce that right?
Don Daneman, that's
Yes.
correct. And I
Okay.
get it, it gets wrong a lot, but that's it.
Okay. So, Don, you are probably the only person I will ever talk to in my lifetime who has actually toured with the Beatles. So
Okay.
I am honored to talk to you about the history and of the group and how it came to, get those big hits, Turn Down Day and Red Rubber Ball, as well as, the revival that occurred later on. But the first question I was going to ask is, how did you end up meeting Tom Dawes, and then go into a quick, brief history of how you ended up meeting Brian Epstein?
Okay, I met Tom Dawes, funnily enough, at Lafayette College, fall semester 1961. And the first time I met him, which had nothing to do with music, we were on a line that must have had it. It's a vague memory, but we were getting medical checkups and Daneman Dawes. So I guess we were together on the same line. And we
Right.
just said hello to each other. And I remember they said line up by height. Now, he and I are very close to the same height, but it
Right.
seemed really important for him to be taller than me. I remember him pushing himself up. So I said, sure, who cares? But that's actually when I first met him. Now, but the significant meeting
Mhm.
was at a freshman mixer a little bit later in the fall. Um, they had booked a band, and the band took a break, and a
Right.
couple of fellow freshmen grabbed instruments and started playing. And I was like upstairs with a new freshman friend of mine, and he says, "Oh, Don, you play guitar." And he helped me lug my amp and guitar down, went up to these guys, "Hey, can I play too?" And we started playing. And so that was Tom was one of the guys, Earl Pickens, the original keyboard player,
Right.
Jim Myella, the original drummer, and I think there was a sax player. I don't remember his name.
Okay.
But anyway, we started playing, and it was really everybody. We liked each other, and we knew the same songs, and it really worked.
Was he part of the Rondelles at that point? The
No,
band?
there were no rondels. There was nobody at that point.
Oh, wow.
This
Okay.
was just a bunch of guys picking up instruments and playing. So
Right.
so what happened was the they said, "Hey, why don't we form a band?" And at that point, I loved the idea of doing it, but I didn't want to because I had my girlfriend who was still in high school back home in
Mhm.
Eastchester.
Right.
And I wanted to be on party weekends. I wanted to be with her, not in a band. Anyway, but we practiced for fun. We just got
Got
together,
it.
and we had a good time. We learned songs. It was really great. Christmas holiday, I went home and she informed me she had a new boyfriend, and I was heartbroken.
Right.
But I came back and I told the guys, "Hey, if you want to start a band, I'm free.
I got time now. Yeah.
I got time." Yeah, and we did. Yeah, we did.
Excellent. So you were playing in club, and I guess from what I recollect from a previous interview, you were basically playing in Jersey, and you got discovered by a friend of Brian Epstein or a business associate of his.
Yeah. Now, what happened was the Rondells, who we became at Lafayette College, that was
Right.
our original name. We were the Rondells through Lafayette College.
Right.
In spring of 1964, for Interfraternity Weekend, which was like a big deal, the whole school goes to this dance.
Yep.
We bought long-haired wigs and put on a Beatles show that was so successful that the orchestra leader of the other band that we were alternating with said, "Hey, can you come to Atlantic City and let's play together?" He thought
Right.
we could actually be a part of his orchestra and step out and do rock. That didn't work. But there we were in Atlantic City, and we thought, let's get a summer job. So Tom, Marty, and I got a summer job at the Alibi Bar in Atlantic City,
Nice.
South Carolina Avenue off the boardwalk. Earl was off that summer he was interning because he wanted to be a doctor. He had a good thing going.
Sure.
The second summer, in summer of 1965, Earl was back with us, and we're playing now. We played the whole summer. And right at the very end of the summer, a gentleman walked into the bar who was just down there in Atlantic City. He introduced himself. My name is Nat Weiss. I am a friend and partner of Beatle manager Brian Epstein, and we're forming a management company here in the States. I think you're really good. Stay in touch. Maybe we'll get something going.
Okay.
Well, we didn't believe him, of course. You know, Brian Epstein, come on, what are you kidding me? All right, so now we're basically kind of broken up, not 100%. I was back home in Eastchester, which is suburban New York, working
Right.
for my dad in the sheet metal factory. He had a small sheet metal factory. Tom and Marty were still at Lafayette, and Earl is off in medical school, University of Chicago. I um, I would go out and play with them once in a while as a trio,
Right.
back fraternity parties. Anyway, one night I thought, I got this guy's card. He says he knows Brian Epstein. Why don't I call him? And he, he answered the phone. He remembered me immediately. I was very pleasantly surprised. Oh, Don, yeah. Hey, why don't you come into the city? He gave me a time and a date and a place. Come into the city and I'll introduce you to Brian. Really? I took a buddy of mine. We went down and it was a party on the first floor of one of those walk-up buildings on the Upper East Side. We walk in, Nat's not there. We kind of stand around. Finally, Nat walks in. I go up to him. Oh, yeah, Don, come on down. And uh, sure enough, I follow him down. There's a limo parked out on the street. And
Wow.
Nat, and I love that we're on video because I get to, Nat graciously beckoned me into the limo. He opened the door with wonderful, hand gestures. He
The
beckoned
sweeping
me.
motion, he basically said,
Yes.
go inside.
And he sits me down, and son of a gun, I'm facing Brian Epstein. I'm sitting right across from Brian Epstein. And of course, we're huge Beatles fans. We know exactly who he is.
Sure.
So now Nat introduces me. Now, I'm going to sound like I'm bragging. So I think of myself as I have a reasonable light rock voice and I'm an okay guitar player. But Nat actually introduced me as Brian Epstein. I would like you to meet Don Daneman, one of the finest musicians I know. So I gulp, now I'm
He
trying to
really
be
played
cool.
you up.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I was trying to be cool. And uh, anyway, so now we had a little bit of an exchange. And I'm going to try and imitate Brian. He was a real gentleman, and it was kind of like, oh, Don, yes, Nat has spoken very highly of you, and it is lovely to meet you. And yes, you should stay in touch with Nat because perhaps we can get something going. He thinks you guys are really fine. So a little bit back and forth that, well, we're big Beatles fans. We'd love to get something happening. It would be an
Right.
awesome thing if we can do that. Anyway, now Nat beckons me out. Just as graciously as he beckoned me in, he beckons me out.
Right.
All right, so out I go. I'm standing there on the street with my mouth open, looking up the street, and the limo, and it's a side street, there's no traffic. The limo slowly pulls off and fades into the dark, and I am blown away now. So, of course, I call Tom and Marty immediately,
Right.
and that got us. It got us to set up a studio in my parents' basement in Eastchester and record demos. And we did that, and I had an appointment to play them for Nat. And funnily enough, the original night that I was supposed to play them was November 11th, 1965, which for those of you who are old enough may remember, that was the night of the East Coast blackout. The
Okay.
whole coast was blacked out. We thought the Russians are coming. Obviously, I didn't go, but a few days later we rescheduled, and I brought the demos up. I lugged my heavy Roberts tape recorder, and I gave Nat a pair of stereo headphones to listen.
Right.
And now at that time, 1965, most people had never heard stereo headphones. It was kind of a unique thing. So now, and the music, I will say, for rough demos that, well, they were more than rough, but they were decent demos recorded on minimal equipment in my basement.
Sure.
Uh, and anyway, so the music was pretty good. And Nat is now listening on stereo headphones for the first time. So he was actually blown away. I remember as the music came on, I saw his face kind of light up and look at the ceiling like,
Well,
wow.
yeah, especially with the harmonies, I'm thinking, because you guys have practiced singing in harmony
Oh, yeah.
for a
Yeah.
while. So you guys, when you hear harmonies in stereo, that's a magical thing if it's done right. So
Well,
that probably did that. So that got you the gig to play with the Beatles, or did that get you the recording contract? What came
well, it
first?
basically, no, the Beatles are down the road a little bit,
Okay,
but yeah, that was the beginning of that though. So now Nat actually got excited and he booked us at clubs in New York, got us record company auditions, and that started that whole process where Columbia Records signed us. A young producer, John Simon, took us on.
right,
Um, Tommy heard Red Rubber Ball on a scratchy 45 demo record. He had gotten friendly with a fellow named Barry Kornfeld, who had a publishing company with Paul Simon. And so we recorded, so we started recording. We recorded Red Rubber Ball.
right,
And all right, so excuse me, here we are now. We're in New York. We have a Columbia record contract. We have a management contract with Brian Epstein, with Nat Weiss partner.
great.
We're still the Rondells at Lafayette. And here we are in the studio one day, and Brian was in town, and he comes up to me. All right, I'm going to imitate Brian again.
Go ahead.
Once again, he was always a gentleman. So if anybody is, I want to convey that we had a wonderful relationship with him. He was a very nice, gentlemanly guy.
Sure.
Oh, Don, he says, take a look at this. And he hands me, it looks like it's a business card. I see it says Brian Epstein on it.
Right.
And he, no, Don, turn it over. I turn the card over and I see scribbling on the back, a Cyrkle. Oh no, Brian, what am I reading? Oh, Don, that's your new name. And notice it's the Cyrkle with the funny spelling, Cyrkle. And wouldn't you know, it was John that came up with that. I was back in Britain. I asked the boys, who has an idea for our new American group? And it was John, you know how he thinks. And so this is what really kills me when I tell this story. Is that I now had in my hand a card, Brian Epstein's business card with John's handwriting on the back Cyrkle. And I'm
You
so
still have that card?
no,
Oh,
that was in the trash the next day. I hate myself for that.
that's okay.
Anyway, so now we're the Cyrkle and we move on. All right, now Red Rubber Ball is recorded and we're playing some clubs, but basically Red Rubber Ball is recorded. Now, I went into the Coast Guard Reserve in February of '66. Red Rubber Ball is in the can, not released yet. And I get a call from Nat.
Just for reference point, I'm interrupting just quickly. For
Oh,
reference
sure.
point, when this happens, I am 2 months old. I'm just letting you know.
Well, I'm going to be 81 in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Congrats.
And I got to tell you, it is a thrill to be able to still do this at my age. It's
Yes.
just
Yes.
awesome.
We're glad you could.
Anyway, so I get a call from Nat, and he says, hey, do you think you could get a pass? Because we have an opportunity to introduce Red Rubber Ball on Hullabaloo, big TV show at the time.
Yes.
Son of a gun, the Coast Guard gave me, they actually gave me a 3-day pass. And let me see, it's on the wall, but I'm going to walk up and
Sure.
point it out. Here, wait a minute, right. Let me see if it comes off. Here we go.
Oh, perfect. I love visual aids. That's perfect. Wow. Oh, nice.
That,
Very nice.
yeah, there you go.
Beautiful.
That was the leader of my Coast Guard group of that, that week. And
Right.
as you see, I'm handing him a guitar, he's handing me a rifle. They did a nice funny thing about it.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so so we did Hullabaloo. We
Right.
Paul Anka was the host. Leslie Gore was on it, and Peter and Gordon were on it. And we have actually touched base with Peter Asher,
Right.
who was on both of the Flower Power cruises that we were on. We just finished one, and we were on a couple of years ago.
Nice.
And Peter Asher actually introduced us. At the first time when he introduced us, he said something that we all knew, and I knew, but he said it in such a way that I went, "Oh my God, yeah, wow." He made a real big point out of big, successful Brian Epstein. He had multiple groups,
Right.
but he had one American group.
Group.
Ladies and gentlemen, the only American group managed by Brian Epstein, the Cyrkle,
Circle. That's right.
and
Oh, awesome.
it was very cool. Anyway, so we did Hullabaloo, and now I'm back in Coast Guard boot camp, and the following week, it's going to be on the air. And I'm sitting in the dining room, and the whole camp is in the dining room now because, hey, one of our guys is going to be on TV. Talk about a surreal moment. I'm sitting at myself, and son of a gun, it comes on. It's in black and white, a little TV set. I see myself, and the whole mess hall erupts. Yay! Wow! 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 And I'm just like,
So it's basically you're a Coast Guard represent for the
uh,
entire company there.
it was an
You
amazing,
know,
yeah.
rock
It
and
was,
roll, which was
yeah,
nice.
yeah. It was amazing. Um,
So did that
so
lead? Did that lead? So once Red Rubber Ball started picking up steam, that led to the tour with the Beatles.
yeah, that it led right up to it because what happened then was I was now boot camp was over, and I was on a buoy tender in Staten Island.
Hmm.
And it was an interesting lifestyle because, I mean, it could have really been an interesting movie sort of setup. I mean, I was a mess cook during the day, scrubbing pots and pans in the galley,
Right.
this buoy tender. And at night, I would walk around to the Staten Island ferry. It was right there, and take the ferry into Manhattan, take the subway up to Columbia Studios, and record all night. It was,
Wow. So
it was,
you were really doing double duty
double
at that
duty.
point.
It
Yeah.
was an amazing experience to be doing these two things. Um, anyway, so now I kept on hearing, Nat would constantly update me. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Red Rubber Ball just sold 25,000 copies in Atlanta. I still remember him naming cities. Oh, in Boston, another 25,000 copies.
Right.
So we're moving along, and I was able to get most weekends off, and we'd play. So once again, from mess cook to rock star. Well, not
Nice.
quite, but
Yeah. Like,
Anyway, so now we hear that we are invited on the Beatles tour, and
wow.
and uh, but unfortunately, I was going to miss it because
Oh,
I wasn't getting out. I was going to miss it by a month.
wow.
And now, so here's my analogy of how this happened. Um, Many people have heard of Andy Warhol's 15 Minutes of Fame. It's something he's talked about.
Yes.
We must have been in the 15 minutes of fame, within that 15 minutes, because when you're in that 15 minutes, everything goes right. And what happened was, it had nothing to do with me. The United States government decided Don Danneman is in that 15 minutes. We got to make it right. And they actually changed the 6 months obligation to 5.
Oh, so you were able to join the
And
tour.
I got out and did that Beatles tour.
Wow.
By a couple of days, I think it was. It was the most.
Excellent. Excellent. So
I
after
mean,
you did the tour, when you
yeah.
were on the plane with them and going from city to city, did you get a chance to sort of like hang out, talk with with all of the members of the Beatles, or did they keep you guys pretty separated as far as you know acts?
We got to hang out. We definitely had some hangout time, but they kept themselves separate as well. The plane, mostly the on the planes, they were behind a wall
Right,
in the back of the plane. They built
right. They had their own little private space.
had their own little private space. And the first time when the first meeting actually was the first flight from New York to Chicago, where the first concert was. I'm sitting next to Tommy and Nat Weiss actually, and we keep looking back. We're towards the front of the plane, and there's the wall, and there's the wall, and finally, um, a door opens, and there's Paul. He's the only guy that came out on that flight,
Really?
and
Oh wow.
you could see that he was very jovial. He shook hands with people. He was meeting people, and finally he worked his way up to us. And now Nat, through Brian and that whole relationship, Nat knew them all, and
Right.
so he introduces Don Danneman of the Cyrkle meet Paul McCartney. So I got to shake his hand. Wow, we're big Beatle fans. We can't wait to play. A couple of little things back and forth. Same thing with Tom Dawes. And then he excuses himself and says, "Well, looking forward to playing with you guys and seeing you play." Back behind the wall, and we spent the rest of the flight analyzing every word, like, "Oh God, why couldn't we have been cooler?" You know,
Why couldn't they you in the back of the plane with
oh,
them?
they should have let us in. Anyway, the first actual meeting that we had with them
Right.
was it was the third concert. It wasn't until the third concert that we actually got to meet the boys.
Right.
We were formally invited backstage. And in this case, it was a trailer behind the stage in Cleveland.
Wow.
And anyway, so we actually got shown in, and and basically, so here's royalty. We're meeting royalty. They're slouched out on the couches. I mean,
They're all hanging out.
it's
Just
total hangout. Yeah.
yeah.
So we get to shake hands. Don Danneman meet Ringo Starr, meet Paul McCartney, meet John Lennon. I ended up actually in front of George,
Ah.
and I had a lovely conversation with George.
Hmm.
And it was along the lines of, how did you get here? He was interested, like, well, tell me, how did the Cyrkle happen? He wanted some of the story. How
Right.
did you get here? And he even shared, he says, it's only a few years ago we were a bar band in Liverpool. And I'm still blown away by the success, when you think about it.
Yes.
So anyway, it was a lovely meeting. I found George to be just a warm, nice guy. There was warmth. You looked in his eyes and there was warmth. Um, let's see. I remember playing cards one night, just hanging around the hotel. I don't remember what city it even was, but
Hmm.
Paul and Ringo, and they were not Beatles in that card game. They were just two guys. We were playing for poker for quarters.
Nice.
That was
All
it.
right,
How you doing now? What are
nice
we?
casual. They basically, became almost, like real tour mates with you guys.
Yeah,
They weren't like the stars and kept at arm's length anymore,
yeah. It
which
was
was
just,
nice.
yeah. They were basically, they became regular guys in the times where we got to hang out. And John, every once in a while, he would come up. He would look at us and say, "So, guys, have you learned to spell yet?" With the circle name that he gave us, he would
Right.
give that.
Very,
Um,
very cool.
yeah, I still remember at the last concert in Candlestick Park,
Hmm.
George was walking around taking pictures, and we asked him, "Why are you taking pictures? You don't think there are thousands of pictures being taken here?" Well, and he shared with us, I think I don't know if we're going to be playing in person anymore. We're
Mm.
we're thinking to do recordings that we don't know if we can even duplicate. We're tired of all the noise, people can't even hear anyway. We don't know. So I just want some personal memories. So that's basically, and then the tour actually ended where we had a plane ride from San Francisco back to LA, where that's where everybody was getting off.
Right.
And everybody was taking pictures with the Beatles. This is where everybody broke down, and the Beatles were posing. They were fine to pose.
Wow.
And we chose because we didn't want to be looked at as silly fans trying to take pictures. So we didn't. We didn't take pictures with them. Another one of those stupid things. Why didn't you? So
Well, let me move ahead from the Beatles.
sure.
You'd had that great big hit, which was written by Paul Simon and Bruce Woodley, Red Rubber Ball, as well as Turn Down Day. How
Yes.
I want to know why you couldn't rework with them or work with some of their other songs. Paul Simon had so many songs from his Tom and Jerry days all the way into Simon and Garfunkel, and you never revisited that well.
No, we actually did.
Oh,
We
you
actually
did.
did. Yeah. I know we at least, I can't remember every single thing we recorded, but I know we recorded um, looking through my window from the freshly fallen snow that sparkles as it tumbles upon the street below. And the crackle of the fire is laughing in my ear, and the room is warm and sleepy. I wish you could be here.
Oh, very
And
nice.
that was
Very
just
nice.
that, and that was actually our fourth single.
Um, I think the last thing you did after Neon was the Minx, and which is like the soundtrack to an X-rated movie. And I'm thinking, how did these guys move from Neon to the Minx? I mean, where did that come from?
Okay, here we go. Nat Weiss had a friend, Herb Jaffe, who was producing a movie called Squeeze Play. And this is right at the point where record sales had kind of gone down. And it was like, I think maybe it ain't happening. We're going to break up. Um, and Nat said, well, how would you guys like to do the music for this movie? And, oh, yeah, well, cool, let's do it. So we did the music for Squeeze Play.
Right.
And when it was done, it turned out to be everybody thought this is really a lousy movie. Let's add some porn stuff to it to spice it up. And they changed the name to the Minx. But if you watch the movie, the theme song is still Squeeze Play. The
Right.
song it starts out with the song Squeeze Play.
They
They
sort of did the music before they even thought what the movie was going to turn out into.
Well, the name was Squeeze Play. The movie was originally called Squeeze
Squeeze
Play, and
Play.
that was the theme song that we did. And we are actually in the movie. We are in two scenes of the movie. One is it's in the disco, and
Okay.
one is an afternoon scene where the main characters are there chatting about something, and we're kind of in the back. It's like the band putting their stuff together. And
Right.
then we are the band playing at the disco scene at night when everybody's dancing.
Wow. Okay. Well, that explains how that came about.
There you
So
go.
now let's get into a little bit of, the revival and how you basically, got things really started again, especially after the tragedy of having Tom Dawes pass away, most recently. You were interested in restarting it, but he didn't make it.
Well, basically, there's a couple of things that I can share with you on that.
Sure.
When Tommy died, we were not really close through our whole commercial career. We both got into doing commercials, and we both had good, successful careers, but we weren't all that close. Although we did get together a couple of times.
Sure.
Um, but at this point, we're both retired, and we actually kind of reignited a deep friendship that we actually had.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about getting the band back together. Let's do
Right.
it. We're both retired. We can do it. He and his wife were going to come to our house in Pennsylvania, and we were going to talk about it and just have a weekend together. And he calls me up. It was Friday night. He said, Don, sorry, we can't come. My doctor wants me to have carotid artery surgery immediately. And he didn't think it was a big deal. He says, it's a 45-minute operation. We'll do it next week. Okay, fine. And he died on the operating
Oh,
table
what
that
a
night. It was
shame.
really, really sad.
It's too bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that you still kept the idea of getting the band together, and then you added, the other players as well to it. So
Well, all right,
go
there's a
into a
couple,
little bit of that.
yeah. there's a couple of things I'll try and get it quickly within the time frame that you have.
Sure.
All right. So the first thing I want to share is that, just to stay on the Tommy thing for a moment, is that one of the songs on our current album, which is called Revival, and it was actually
Yep.
the first single that they decided to release. It's called We Thought We Could. It's called whoops. It's called We Thought We Could Fly,
Yes.
and
It's a great song.
I was able to take Tommy's background vocals from another recording and manipulate them and actually write a song that honored our history.
That's
And
really sweet.
so when you hear it, I sing the lead. All the background vocal that you hear on the recording is actually Tommy from this other recording that kind of got, manipulated. And when I did it, I would cry a lot of the times. It really, it gave me a chance to sing one last time with my bandmate Tommy Dawes.
That
So
is amazing. So I really I could listen to you all day,
yeah.
honestly, on this. It's fascinating. It's great stuff. I love the history. I think the album is a lot of fun. There's a lot of great music on it. I want to thank you, Don Daneman, for interviewing with me, and I wish you continued success, continued fun playing music wherever you go, and be well.
Aaron, it's lovely to meet you. I've met such wonderful people in this revival mode that it's been really cool, and I love doing it. I love sharing the history and this whole thing. And like I say, it's an honor to be able to do this. And like as of this interview, I'm going to be 81 in a couple of weeks.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Well, congrats again, and thank you so much.
Aaron, take care. Love,
All right,
love,
take care.
love,
So
love
long.
doing it. Okay,
All right,
bye
bye.
bye.